So, thank you all for joining us. I'm glad more of you came on. We're going to get started. As you'll see, my name is Alan Kaplan. I'm the Interim Communications Director here at the New American Leaders Project. And thank you all for joining this wonderful webinar with Juan Vasquez from NationBuilder and Sonia Reynolds from the New York Civic Engagement Table to talk about online engagement. Uh, which is a major part of all of our work at this point, and especially electoral work. So we're really excited to have them both. Just a few logistics before we get going. As you'll see on your right, we'll be taking questions, and chat boxes are open, and you can put your you can put your questions in the chat box. And Herman, who is my co-organizer and who's the director of politics here at New American Leaders Project, will take your questions and direct it to the right place or answer it. So please feel free to do it throughout, to send your questions throughout. But we will have a question and answer session at the end. So hopefully you can be patient and wait for your questions to get answered then. So I guess to just get going, the two major systems that I've worked with, and I've been working in the field for a good decade now, have been NationBuilder and NGP VAN, the Voter Activation Network, both of which have different tools at their disposal and are slightly different, but they both kind of do similar work when it comes to actual field engagement, using data and using online tools to get things going. So to get things started, I want to introduce Juan Vasquez from NationBuilder. He is the evangelist. Is that the right title?
We've shifted over to digital organizer. It just makes more sense given really what I'm doing. So digital organizer is my new title.
Digital organizer. Wonderful. And Juan's been with them for a while, and I've worked with him at various other organizations as well. We're very lucky to have him. So I'm going to toss it over to Juan first to give his presentation, and then we'll switch over to Sonia from the New York Civic Engagement Table, and then we'll open it up for questions. All right. So I'm going to give it to Juan. Please take it away.
All right, switching over now. All right, is everybody seeing my screen? I should say digital campaigns plus NationBuilder. Is that what we're all seeing? Yes, cool. All right. So again, my name is Juan Vasquez. I'm a digital organizer with NationBuilder, and our tools are built to help leaders within advocacy, politics, brands, and nonprofits better organize and mobilize their communities. A bit like Alan said, I've been with the company a little over a year and a half now. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself, but I want to preface this by saying that all of the concepts that I'm going to share with you guys today, we'll look at them under the NationBuilder lens, but it's very important that you're aware that everything we talk about today are just really good things to keep in mind when you organize, whether you use our technology or not. So again, we'll look at them as like how we use them with the NationBuilder platform, but definitely feel free to, I recommend exploring other things and seeing really what works for you. So a little bit about myself first. I love to bike. What you see here, the first big picture, that's one of my friends, Ishraq. He used to work with me at NationBuilder. When we were just kind of writing out just a big advocate for people to ride to and from work and get your groceries and stuff. But I've also been organizing for quite some time. So the top right picture that you see, that's me with a nonprofit that I was very involved in and still am, Teens Exploring Technology, and really help them build support online in different ways. I've also organized politically for a mayoral campaign. I was their director of digital. And I've been a student organizer. I worked in the advertising agency world. So now at NationBuilder, I get to combine all that and really kind of look at organizing through a communications lens, through to the kind of nonprofit, political, and mix it all up. And if anybody ever kind of wants to keep this dialogue going, I'll share my contact info at the very end. So organizing, building online influence, getting people to take action, and using online tools. Those are really some of the major goals today. And to accomplish that, we're going to look at three main things. The first is the intersection of people and data. The second is something we call paths of engagement, and I'll definitely go into that. And at the end, we're just going to share some very general pro tips. I pulled 3 very specific things that I think are pretty awesome and useful. So the intersection of people and data, paths of engagement, and then some NB pro tips. That's what we'll talk about today. First thing, people and data. We are surrounded by mountains and mountains and mountains of data, and there's a lot of it that is very irrelevant. So what we aim to do in the way we organize is to humanize all that. I'll go a little bit in the next slide. We'll look at how we do that. But we figure that if we combine the right type of data and we frame it in the proper way, we get a really nice and solid picture of who the human on the other end is. So what you're seeing here is the basic kind of high-level thing that you would see in a person's profile in our platform. So it combines information about the person's social media. So you see here my Twitter, my Facebook, my LinkedIn, my website. There's a bio, equality and access advocate, digital and community organizing for NationBuilder. So it gives a sense of who the person is, and that's actually my Twitter bio. So one of the cool things about NationBuilder is that if you plug in an email address, the platform's going to look for social, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn profiles and pull them in. So not only do you go from having one way of communicating with your supporter, email, but now you have possibly 4, all of the other social media. So that would be very exciting. It's been useful in phone banking in my own history. I was talking to a guy, and even though he appeared to be the perfect voter that should align with my candidate, he just wasn't having it. But I saw, we were using NationBuilder at the time, and I saw that he was also into biking and that he liked to cook, 2 things that I really enjoy, and we were able to bond over that. So I used data to humanize our relationship. There's a few other main points in the image you're looking at, but really the goal here is to frame the relationship, explain to the person looking at it how this person came into our database, if they're a voter, a possible volunteer, and really what are the next steps that I, as an organizer of the campaign, should take to activate this person. Continuing along this line of humanizing data, we feel that if you get the right data, you segment it right, and you also map it, you're really going to understand the physical communities that you work with. So in the top left, what I'm sharing with you is a very straightforward segmentation that I did. I wanted the database to tell me everybody who was a volunteer, who I also had Twitter information for. So who I had Twitter accounts for. And very easily, you see Jose Velasquez, he came up, and there's a long list of people that would meet that criteria. And this can get extremely, extremely specific. To the right of that, though, you see a bunch of little boxes with red and green letters and numbers. Those are basic stats about any given person in my database. I can know if they're a volunteer, if they've pledged, if they've donated, if they've fundraised, and also their voting history. And all of that can be thrown into the way you segment your data, so I get an extremely well-rounded picture of who my supporter is. So that's the intersection of people and data, and then you can just really geocode all of that. So if I'm going to have an event as a candidate or as a campaign manager, I should probably get a sense of where my supporters are, right? I'm not going to host an event or a fundraiser if all of my supporters are 50 miles away. But if I can view them on a map, I can put my event and allocate my resources where my people are at. I want to meet them where they're at. I don't need to force them to come to me. Moving on, paths of engagement. A lot of times people feel, or we've seen, that the way a campaign or a nonprofit might treat a relationship is very linear. We want you to vote for us. We want you to donate, and that's the end goal. I don't know if anybody played Super Mario and the Mario games growing up, but I was addicted to this game. And it really illustrates our vision for paths of engagement. If I'm Mario and I arrive into this little world, I have a variety of ways that I can ultimately reach the star or the number 5 castle. And that's what we want to do. We want to allow people to show us love in a way that makes sense for them. We want support to be flexible and not seen as a linear thing that goes from point A to point B. Before we get that vote or that donation, we might have to ask for a pledge. We might have to ask them to be our social media champion. We might have to ask them to come to the campaign office or to host a fundraiser. So we need to really be able to gauge people's level of commitment and how willing they are to show us love. And the only way to do that is by presenting different opportunities for them to engage with us and to step up as leaders. So diversified. Here's a good way that our website and the front-facing website kind of capabilities of NationBuilder allow us to do that. What you're seeing here are 4 screenshots of 4 different websites. Anything from a city council, a Jill Stein's presidential campaign website, is on there. And you see anything from an endorsement to recruitment for different volunteer roles to making a money pledge to an actual donation that tracks the amount that is being raised. And these are only 4 of about 30 different actions that can be taken on a NationBuilder website without the need for any coding. So we don't want knowledge or resources to be what holds you back from being a leader, which is why our action pages are ready to go. You need to recruit volunteers, cool, click a button, you're good to go. That type of deal already happens. We want your website to be a place where community happens. It should not be a billboard that just informs. There should be information, but you need to engage. Gone are the days where a website is flat and just a bunch of paragraphs and images. That is not cutting it anymore, and I don't think any campaign or political professional should settle for a website that simply tells a story but does not allow community to engage. So a few ways you can do that, and I would ask, as a professional in this area, like how many ways can my supporters show love, and go from there. So now we've talked about the intersection of data, we've talked about paths of engagement. Let's talk about some of the high-level pro tips within the NationBuilder platform that I would really suggest everybody takes a look at. I'm gonna write a summary of this webinar and we'll include the deck, and then I'll pass it along to Alan and the right folks. And there will be a link in there to a blog post that explains exactly how this works, but I'll frame it as a story. So let's say I'm going to run for mayor. I'm not interested in politics for myself, but let's pretend I want to run for mayor. As a young Latino interested in politics, it would probably make sense for me to do some outreach to the new American Leaders Project. So I could go to the organization's Twitter handle and scroll through the 1,417 Twitter followers that it has and handpick everybody that would make sense for me to connect with. That will take forever. So instead, what I could do is I could use NationBuilder and I could do what's called an import. So I could tell NationBuilder, hey NationBuilder, New American Leaders Project has a public account, meaning anybody and everybody can see the followers on there. Why don't you import all of them into my database? So right in that bottom image where it says imports, what I'm doing is I'm naming the import and giving NationBuilder the Twitter handle that I want to import, and then I'm adding a tag. So in my database, like I showed you earlier where we see the volunteers who have Twitter information, I can also segment by tags. So I could look for everybody that follows the New American Leaders Project and not stop there, but also do segmentation based on their keywords in their Twitter bio. I don't want to outreach to all 1,500 people, but I would love to do outreach to the followers of the New American Leaders Project who have any of the following words in their Twitter bio: communications, digital, social media, and tech. That right there is a community of people that I definitely want to tap into, and it happened within minutes because of NationBuilder tools. So this specifically allows you to ask the questions of who follows my allies and how can I connect with them, who follows your competition so that you can do better tracking and understanding of what their communities look like, and who can influence on your behalf. So there are people out there that would love to be part of your communities. They just don't know that yet. This tool helps you find them and connect with them. The next one is called Broadcasters. This basically works as megaphones. So it allows you to do outreach and outbound communications under different personas. Sometimes it could be the candidate, sometimes it could be the campaign or the volunteer or coordinator or the finance director. But another really cool thing that broadcasters allow you to do is plug in different social media accounts. So you can plug in, if Juan's running for mayor, I could plug in Latinos for Juan. And all of those Facebook pages. I could plug in students, college students for Juan, and plug in that Facebook page. I could plug in the account, LA technology professionals for Juan, and plug that in. And what that results in is a matrix of online communities. So I can see where support connects. I can see what people are part of the same communities, and I can also see how to funnel support from one community to the other to really build capacity. It also presents a unique ask for my partners in whatever I'm trying to accomplish. There's some folks that will not be willing, organizations who can't give you money or only so much money or only so much people resources, but why not plug their social media communities into your database? And of course, you'd have to have this conversation with them. But if you plug them in, all of a sudden you can get a sense of if I'm plugging in maybe a nonprofit, Well, there are some people who follow that nonprofit account either on Facebook or Twitter who are probably politically inclined or should be aware of your political efforts. So this is a really nice way to plug it all together to kind of bring other communities into your database and go from there. So I'm going to share one last pro tip, and then I'll kind of wrap up, pass it back up to Alan. The last thing is to make it fun and personable. So what you're seeing here are two things. The first on the left is what we call a leaderboard, and it basically allows you to assign points to a given action that a supporter can take. In this case, this is measuring the people based on the amount of tweets that they share, but it can also be based on how much they fundraise, how many volunteers they recruit, how much support they show generally, and very easily show you as an administrator or leader within the movement who the biggest supporters are in any particular way. Or more importantly, it can help you better engage them. So an entire digital campaign can be built around, let's find the 10 most active volunteer recruiters. And those 10 people will definitely achieve a different level of kind of love from the organization or from the campaign. But it really just gamifies the experience. It brings in a sense of competition. And it's something that can really bring fun into what can be an otherwise stressful environment. Organizing is not easy. Organizing takes time and effort. And so anytime you have a chance to have fun with it, do it. So that's the leaderboard. The thing you see to the right where it says Tamika Butler, and then a brief, that's her Twitter bio. There's also how much she has raised and how much she has to go. She's still got a lot of money to raise. Well, you see, that is a personal fundraising page. So I won't go into the intricacies of how it happens, but basically everybody who lives in your NationBuilder database has the option to have a public profile, which that's your prerogative as the administrator to decide. And you can easily turn that into a fundraising page. So now, instead of asking Tamika to donate to my campaign, I can ask her to fundraise on my behalf. And I can also inform people about other ways by just really empowering the members of my community to be leaders. So those two things, leaderboard and personal fundraising pages, add a very human and personal element to all this. I'm going to wrap up with that. I'll share my contact info on the last slide, but just a quick recap. We talked about the intersection of people and data as a way to enhance your organizing efforts and to really understand it. We talked about mapping it and segmenting right, engaging folks in different ways. And lastly, a few pro tips on how to import Twitter data, how to connect different social communities, and how to gamify the organizing experience. You can reach me at jvasquez@nationbuilder.com, Twitter, my website, smoke signals if you want, carrier pigeons. I'd just love to chat with you about any of this if you found it interesting. And I am going to shut up and pass it back over to Alan, and happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Juan. Can anyone hear me? Everyone hears me? Okay. So what I'm gonna do now is while I'm introducing Sonia, I'm gonna throw up a quick poll. Please, we're just trying to play this out, and if you answer it or not, we're just trying this new tool. So I want to introduce Sonia Reynolds from the New York Civic Engagement Table. Sonia and I have worked together numerous times over the last 5 to 7 years. She's been instrumental in making sure that our data, the data in New York, and tools that she's using are available to a wide variety of groups. And due to the efforts of the New York Civic Engagement Table, the progressive community in New York has been able to grow and really become much more powerful. And I've seen it myself in the field numerous times. And her support and help has been extremely valuable. So I'm going to close the poll and throw it over to Sonia, who's going to walk us through some of her work. Sonia, you ready?
Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. We are going to do this. Okay. You can see my screen as well, I hope. Okay, great. So as Alan said, well, first, thanks, Alan, for including me in this. And Juan for like setting up such a great segue to my section. I'm going to talk about tools for organizing the van and Catalyst. So while Juan is talking about like digital organizing, I'm going to talk a bit about how to do like door-to-door and phone banking organizing with the van and Catalyst. I'm the data director for the New York State Civic Engagement Table. I'll explain what that is. What we're going to go over today is what the Civic Engagement Table is. We're part of a national network called State Voices, so I'll explain what that is. State Voices also has a program called Tools for All, so we'll talk about that, and then I'll go over quickly what the tools are. We're going to go, not going to do like a full van demo, and then we'll talk about how we're trying to improve the tools, and then how you can get support if you work for a nonprofit anywhere really in the country. So the New York State Civic Engagement Table is a collaboration of organizations that do issue advocacy or civic engagement across New York City and state. The part that I work on is the data side, so that's like utilizing economies of scale in order to get small organizations and to large organizations, but like mainly to get really great tools for organizations that wouldn't be able to afford it otherwise, and like access to help in utilizing those tools. And that's our website. We don't have a lot of public-facing information, but that's us nonetheless. We're part of State Voices, this national network. As you can see in New York, we have our own table, and then many other states across the country have this idea of this civic engagement table. For these states where you see there's gray, if you are in one of those states, you actually fall under this Tools for All umbrella. So in New York, all of our organizations have access to the data team at the table. So they get like, it's not a vendor, it's like we're part of your team, you call us, we'll help you, we'll go to your offices right now. I am doing this from a partner office because we had a meeting this morning. If you're part of one of the states that doesn't have a full-time team like ours, you're part of the Tools for All network, and you can still get really great support from the national network. So that's what Tools for All is. It covers these states that aren't covered by the State Voices tables. If anybody has any questions about that, like if you work for a nonprofit and you're not plugged into this, you probably should be. We can get really great tools for you and access to Van and Catalyst, and then some broader data help. You can see all of these organizations are ones that sit at our table of nonprofits. The tools are the VAN, the Voter Activation Network, and Catalyst. So Catalyst is the database of everybody in the country who's registered to vote. In New York, we just deal with the New York file, so that's everybody across the country, across the state, including folks that aren't registered to vote, which we get their data from commercial data sources. So the VAN is this online platform like NationBuilder that helps you access that data and do phone banking, door-to-door canvassing, mailings, and that sort of stuff, but it's definitely focused around face-to-face interaction versus that digital online. And then the tools also are this training and technical support, training like I'm doing right now, training like I do in person in offices, and then Tools for All also has a weekly VAN intro webinar that anybody in the progressive community can come and like learn how to use VAN. So Catalyst, I mentioned before, maintains the underlying data for this database. They obtain that data from the Secretaries of State and commercial vendors, as well as from our national partners. So it's not just from the Board of Elections, and the commercial vendor tends to be Info USA, which is like the big evil data collector. Our partners also collect data on folks that are already engaged in some way, and sometimes we share that data with each other. And then the database includes not only registered but unregistered voters. It's commercial, and then we also have census data, so you can segment, as Juan was talking about earlier, segmenting around somebody's Twitter. We can segment around census information or models, so like how likely somebody is to support a certain issue, how likely somebody is to be of a demographic that we're interested in, like Latino or Asian, depending on what our program is. And then we also have, in many cases, organizations that share their data across programs. So we can look at data from your past program or another organization's past program. So the VAN is this online platform. You can collaborate with other folks. You can set up phone banks. You can go door to door, much like many of the tools in NationBuilder, but more focused on going out in the field. Okay, here's kind of the back end of how this looks. Right here in the middle here, oh, I have a pointer. Right here is the State Voices website. And then in the back end of that, right, is the Catalyst database, which comes from the voter file and the commercial data, and then it goes into the VAN. There are some major limitations to the data available through VAN and Catalyst, and I like to be really upfront about this. I think the most important, I think these are all really important. Okay, one of the most important is that our racial data is modeled, so it's based on folks' names and where they live and other commercial data about them. It's not 100%, but it's much better than a blind stab in the dark. The ethnicity models are even worse, and I think while the racial data is fairly good, the ethnicity model I almost never use. We also don't have language preference information, but as we'll get to in the next slide, there are ways to collect that data in the field and then use that in the future. One of the tools that we offer folks is to take their membership lists and match them to the voter file. So for an organization that has like a broad membership database, we match their members to the voter file, and we can tell them if they're actually engaging the communities that they want to be engaging, at what rates their community is voting, what rates they're registered to vote, that kind of stuff. But the lists never match 100% because we don't always have everybody's information. We definitely on the voter file don't have everybody's email address. So this is also why this tool is like a great complementary to NationBuilder, because we don't always have people's email addresses. And then also, like, younger folks and many people around the country don't have access to landlines, and our phone quality is in decline. So I think we're at a moment of trying to think about how to use these tools in a better way, and also how to use these tools in conjunction with other online organizing tools in order to get to a place where we're actually organizing everybody. Part of improving the data is like this newer field we have in VAN called the self-reported race and ethnicity. So you can supplement the modeled race and ethnicity models with your own information that you collect at the door from the voter based on how they self-identify. And then you can put the person's preferred language. That's a really great tool if you're going to run a phone bank and you have some Spanish-speaking organizers. You can have everybody collect who are the Spanish speakers and then call back the Spanish speakers that you marked as their preferred language. So I already talked about this, but we have like some great training resources through Tools for All, and if you happen to be in New York, the New York State Table. There's a weekly webinar. There's a ton of training videos that are available online. We have some VAN manuals, if you will. And then you can always reach out to me, and I can either send you to the table that you fall in based on what state you're in, or I can send you to the National State Voices Network. That is how you get help, me or National, or through these videos. And that's it. I was very quick. I will pass it back to Alan.
I have a question, Sonia. If you are in a state where you have a State Voices, you can access that database. Can you also access the national network, or are you limited to your state VAN database?
It depends on the organization. If the organization is very state-based, then your access to the national network tends to be through your table. But you'll still, like the way that it works in New York at least, is if you're an organization that's in New York, you come to me for some data help, and then if I can't answer your question, you come into something that I don't know, or you have a question about another state, I send you to the place that you need to go. And that happens really often. We're really active between each other. We have a really active team.
I can imagine. Awesome, thanks.
Thank you, Sonia. And so you'll see another poll. Please let us know if you'd like more information on the van, and we'll connect you with Sonia, and then she might be able to connect you with the State Voices table in your state. So thank you both to Juan and to Sonia. Sonia, I keep pronouncing your name wrong. I'm really sorry. I'll get used to it. We'll now open it up to questions. I'm going to toss it to Herman now to make sure that all of your questions get asked. So Herman, are there any questions specifically? You can ask them out loud, or you can direct them through the questions box to the panelists.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a intimate enough group where we can ask questions just by unmuting. I don't see any questions on the chat box or on the question box, so if anyone has questions, please feel free to speak up. I know we have Steve, Nadia, Matthew, and Hisham on the line. So if any of you guys have any questions, now is the time to speak. I have a question from Steve. He says, "What will be the next step in online engagement in the future?" So I guess this is a question for either one of you guys. But what do you guys see as the future? So Sonia mentioned some of the challenges in phones and landlines. Do you guys have any predictions? Hello?
Sorry, it was really hard for me to hear the question.
Okay, I can repeat it. Essentially, the question was, what will be the next step in online engagement in the future? Mustafa is asking you guys to see if you guys can predict, to a certain degree, with your knowledge, what it looks like online engagement will look like in the future.
I'm happy to jump in. I see it creating a space where advocacy and kind of like civic engagement type actions are more baked into the social media and digital spaces that are not currently built for that. So like I can't very straightforward make like a vote pledge on Twitter, directly on Twitter. I would love for Twitter or Facebook to open up some native functionality that allows for civic engagement to happen. And I think we're going to see also more elected officials and kind of candidates really embrace podcasts, blogs, just anything that shatters a lot of the red tape that is built around communicating with them in our environment. And that's what I think.
Yeah, what I'll add to that is like the thing, I mean, where I think it's going or where I want it to go, I'll answer the question about where I want it to go, which is like I don't like this separation between online and in real life, if you will, organizing. Like we need to do a better job of connecting those two. We definitely needed to do a better job of using Facebook and Twitter data and pushing it to in-person civic engagement.
Thank you. That was
Awesome.
great.
Thank you, guys. I have another question from Matthew. Matthew is asking, are there efforts being made to bring the civic engagement table over to states where there's not a local office or network?
Yeah, it's a pretty organic process how a table comes to be. Obviously, if you can tell from the map pretty easily that the money is where swing states are. The money is where there's electoral significance. But I think that's changing as demographics are changing. So in many states, I mean, we've also lost some states where we used to have a table in New Jersey and we don't anymore. But almost every state has the really beginnings of a table, if not a full-fledged, full-time data person or team.
Awesome. Thanks, Sonia. I think I have another question from Nadia. I don't know if
Yes.
she would like.
Me?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes. We can hear
Yeah, the question I had was about pricing. So I know that a lot of these services definitely don't come on the cheap side. Do most candidates fundraise for, like, let's say, would they just reach out to you, find out what the cost packages are, and then fundraise accordingly, or how do you work with that? Because as we know, a lot of people of color, immigrant background candidates, we don't come from the traditional kind of money pipeline, right? We don't come from a lot of privilege necessarily. So I just wanted to know how that works, to try to make that accessible or doable. And also, just because you mentioned New Jersey, why doesn't New Jersey have a table anymore? I actually live in New Jersey and am getting more involved in this state. So if you don't mind answering those questions.
I didn't follow the politics really closely of what happened in New Jersey. I think the organizations on the ground just didn't do a really good job of working together. I mean, part of what the State Voices tables are about is like bringing the progressive community together, and that is not always an easy task. Like we're not always on the same page, and we're trying to cut through that. I think the table is there to cut through that. It's to be this like safe space where we can hash it out, and if we need to divide on an issue, we can eventually come back together because you're going to be at the table together anyway. I think the original question was pricing. For Tools for All, if you're a 501c3, and this doesn't go to the candidate side, but if you're a 501c3 and you're in a state without a table, you can actually get access to Tools for All for free.
I'll speak to NationBuilder side of things. So the technology was built to make it so that almost anybody and everybody can have access to tools to build leadership and community. So our pricing starts at $20 a month, and it scales based on the size of your database, under the assumption that if you have a bigger community to support your vision and to be part of it, you'll be able to fundraise more. So it starts at $20. We offer, and it scales accordingly. We offer contracts that allow for flexibility in how that happens, and it's again, it's built for access. It also doesn't change. It just changed on the general size of the database, not the amount of administrators who have access to it as well. We want to make sure that as the admin capabilities and operational capabilities of your organization or campaign scale, that you're not in a position where you only have so many admin roles that you can dish out. So we really want to scale. $20 and scales accordingly.
Similarly, in New York State, the table does charge for partnership, and that helps offset the mass amounts of money that it costs for the data tools. Like I think our Catalyst contract is in the several $100,000 a year. But our pricing is like between $200 and $2,000 based on the exact same model as Juan. It's like a sliding scale based on how big your budget is in state.
Awesome, thanks. And I think I have one more question here from Mustafa. He's asking, what is the most accurate indicator of a candidate's online engagement?
All you want.
Oh man, I would be so rich if I had that answer. I mean, the honest truth is, I think you have to make the. Yeah, right. There is no one metric. It comes down to how many people are actually having conversations with you. So I can't say Facebook comments or Twitter replies or email open rate, but I think it comes down to actual conversations that generate next steps. So if to me, that means Facebook comments, it means Twitter replies, it means email not just opens, but also click-throughs are important. Submissions. So anything that is having a two-way dialogue boil down a metric, and there are ways to kind of mix them into one index number. But yeah, just conversations.
Great. Do we have any more questions? I think those are the only ones I see left on the question box or the chat box. If anyone has any other ones, feel free to just unmute.
Yeah, I have one. This is Alan. So you both talked about your data, and I know that there's a lot more to be said, but what kind of tools do you all have to like clean the data? Let's say I have a list that is just an Excel spreadsheet with a whole bunch of stuff on it, and I import it into your systems. What kind of tools do you have to like clean the data, upend information, and other things?
That's an awesome question. Um, we start off by having a good discussion and having an organizer like myself. I used to do that a lot with the language speaking world, where an organizer would actually kind of look over your data first. So a human eye from NationBuilder's end to help give some sort of feedback. Then our data importer tool, so you can just really easily plop in different Excel databases and email lists. It will look for unique identifiers in that data and that are already existing in your nation. So it'll match based on emails, Twitter accounts, and also certain other kind of key pieces of data. We also have a services team that during the trial period, which is around 2 weeks, uh, they can do kind of custom data help. So they'll bring it in. And then lastly, Accurate Append is an amazing tool. We have an integration with them. And just very easily bring your data into NationBuilder. You give the list name to Accurate Append, and then it will just kind of siphon through and spit back out verified information, unverified, and appended information. So it's really cool.
And then at least in the New York table, I help organizations a lot clean their data, whether it's like, I do some scripting, so I'll just write some code and clean up if somebody has like first and last names in one field instead of separated. That's how some of that we just do a lot ad hoc. And then about appending stuff to your database, like part of what we do is we match people's membership and then we export from the Catalyst and Van the fields that they need.
Great, thank you. So I don't see any more questions, but obviously, if you all, oh wait, I see another one. Herman, you want to do this one or?
Sorry. Does the best online engaging candidate always win? If not, statistically, how often? I'm not sure if you guys would know this, but Mustafa's asking this question.
Stat wise, I don't know. I know fundraising is a huge component of it, but also to compensate a really good grassroots game that combines some really solid field with digital support. I think we're going to see that number continuously spike, though. I think not long gone are the days that money determines the outcome. But I would love to see a candidate that wins on like a $50 budget and everything else is based on smart field game and a lot of digital engagement. I wish I had an answer though.
Mustafa, this is Alan. I mean, I don't know if there's stats, and maybe Sanya can jump in. But it does give you a lot more visibility beyond sort of the place where you're running your campaign. So in that sense, you are gaining quite a lot by having a strong online presence, just in general.
Yeah, I don't know of any stats, so I don't have that much to add, sadly.
I'd love to be able to say yes, but it's tough to predict that there's one specific factor that's going to make the campaign work. Great. So if you still have more questions, please send them along to me or Herman, and we will this is recorded and we will be sending this out to all of you along with presentations from both Sanya and from Juan, and hopefully that will be a pretty good tool for you to use. So if there's nothing else, I want to thank you all for joining us. Uh, Hopefully we'll keep this going and we'll be able to bring Juan and Sanya back for the 201 session. But other than that, thank you all so much. And if no one has anything else, I'm gonna shut it down. Anyone else?
Just one last thing. I will go ahead and send everyone who was on this webinar the webinar recording, as well as the PowerPoint deck that were used by Juan and Sonia. If you guys need any other information, like Alan said, just make sure to reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to get that information over to you guys.
Thank you for having me. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thanks so much for including me. This was great.
Thank you
Awesome.
both,
Thank you
and
guys.
thank you everyone for joining us.